Your host, John Myers, live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey, everybody. We have fun. Hey, everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey, everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, mic check, John. Hey, everybody. Mic check, John. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. So, Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the Kicker UnMasked studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey, everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey, everybody. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked studios. Hey, everybody. From the Kicker UnMasked studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Right here, Hey, everybody, it is Tuesday night, 7:30, and you are live right here on UnMasked Bike Weekly, where we talk anything and everything car audio. We had a great show last week. If you guys didn't check it out, you really need to. We had good old Joe Hobart on the show, and we went really in depth on that new Warhorse amplifier. That thing is going to be incredible. We've got a great show for you coming up tonight. We got all kinds of cool things going on. We've got the usual of the fails. We got the questions. We got some cool installs. I've got a special guest, and yes, we're running on a skeleton crew tonight. Most of the crew decided to up and go to Mexico, so yeah, it's fairly limited. We got Bill and Ernie in back, and that's it. So we're going to see how this goes, but I think it'll be good. Those guys actually do know what they're doing, despite what you might think, or despite what I tell you anyway. So stay tuned for a little bit. We're going to come right back, and we're going to jump right into the meat of the show. Stay tuned.
Something about your hands on the wheel, got a sexy touch. It's enough to make me and my Chevy blush. So long, take it off the damn highway. Turn me on, not let you drive, baby. You can take it fast as you want to. Girl, little dirty looks damn good on you. Start me up, Stones on the radio. Girl, I love it when you let go. Don't waste your way in the wrong way. Get off on some 4x4 play.
Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us, and we're going to have a fun show tonight, I think. Of course, we always have a fun show. So, if you guys have never seen this show, make sure, if you like what you see, hit like and subscribe at the bottom. Make sure you give your comments. If you guys have any topics or any, special guests you want to see, send those in to us. If you got any kicker special questions that you need answered, or just audio questions in general, don't forget support@kicker.com. We've got a great crew of people that, answer those questions, and they get back to you very, very quickly. So if you're right in the middle of an install and need some help. If it's during the day, you're probably going to get that answer that day. But if it's after hours, you will get an answer the next day. So great guys, great wealth to tap into if you got some questions about audio in general. And as always, don't forget, if you're not part of the Kicker Club, sign up for the Kicker Club, that Facebook group that is just, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great people that tune into that. Our good friend Andy started that, and he moderates that. And, of course, don't forget Living Loud with Andy. That's another great show that talks all about, basically kicker car audio and audio in general and all the cool things and, some of the stuff that we've done during the show during the week. He'll kind of recap and go a little bit more in depth because we don't have a lot of time with everything we have to do here. So, also, if you're new to this, you guys may have heard we like to give stuff away. So, Bill, if you want to go ahead and pull up my computer, and notice I said Bill and not JW because, once again, he's on his way to Mexico. God, that would be nice. Anyway, Bill, here we go. Pull up the laptop. This is how you sign up to win the prizes on the show. It's kicker.com/UMweekly. That's going to bring you to this page right here where you can register to win the daily prizes that we're going to give away, and we do this on each and every show. The third place winner is going to get the EB400 wireless weather-resistant Bluetooth earbuds, a gray Kicker Unmasked t-shirt, and a Kicker Unmasked koozie. Second prize is going to be a little step up. You're going to get the Tabor Bluetooth headphones, which are an over-the-ear type of headphone, which also sound phenomenal. And the grand prize winner, as always, is going to get the Cush NC, or the noise-canceling Bluetooth headphones. All great headphones, and don't forget, every single winner also gets that gray Kicker Unmasked t-shirt and the Kicker koozie. So make sure you register to win all this, and don't forget, we've got a lot of great events coming up. So if you want, we're going to go ahead and zip on over here to our Facebook page. If you go to Facebook and you click under events and then go down to other, you're going to see all the different things that we're going to be at coming up. And as always, we have got a host of bass lords. Well, they are kind of the lords of bass, but bass wars events coming up. So check these out. If they come to an area near you, it is worth the drive. It is worth spending some time to go see some of these crazy vehicles. I've really gotten a good exposure to it in Vegas a couple weeks ago when we were there for SEMA, and I got to go to Slamology for the first time. This is a lot of fun. I mean, it's not just a bunch of people just being obnoxious. Well, there are a lot of people that are just being obnoxious, but it's a lot of fun. If you like really loud car stereos and some really creative and somewhat warped abilities, check out one of these events because they really are a lot of fun. And obviously, it's getting close to the end of the year. It's almost Christmas time, so if you don't catch this between now and Christmas, hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. Join us back here next year, which will be 2023. God, that came up that quick already. It's crazy. But we've got a lot of events coming up in 2023, so we will have a lot to talk about as we start going to some of these events in your area and taking the whole crew out with us. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So, all that being said, I think we need to go ahead and start talking about today's special subject. Like I said, we did Warhorse amplifiers last week, so what's next to do? Well, we're going to start talking about, how to really approach doing an install from the ground up for someone else, not for yourself. So I'm going to bring out my partner in crime, good old Jacob Lucky, who's I think he's sleeping back here behind the table back here. We're going to bring him up, and we're going to kind of go over some of the things you need to discuss and kind of think about when you're doing an install. So let's give a warm welcome to Jacob, my fellow trainer. Come on, say hi. And
hey, what's up?
We're going to have some fun tonight. If you guys have any questions, like I always mention, be sure to type in on that chat group, and the guys will be really happy to answer questions for you as we go. And if these prompt some thoughts and some ideas later, don't forget, support@kicker.com. So, Jacob, we need to start talking about Grandpa's build. Who is Grandpa?
Well, Grandpa is Kevin Campbell. If you guys don't know who Kevin is, he is our former marketing director, I believe.
Yes.
So he retired not too long ago, and he wanted a sound system in his 2004 BMW. So John and I took on the job.
So we're going to have some fun, kind of a payback for Kevin for 17 or 18 years of absolute just chaos and mayhem, which was so fun. We miss Kevin around here, so it's kind of nice to drag him and his car back into this once in a while, unless we still get to abuse him a little bit. So Kevin's got an interesting car, and it's not your general run-of-the-mill car. It is a common car, but not a car that you often see in a lot of installs. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure it'll be quite of a project. I know in the history of working with these kind of cars that they can be a little bit of a challenge, but how much of a challenge we're going to find out as we move along. But tonight we want to talk about what the car is, and Ernie, can you pull up my laptop real quick? So we've taken some pictures ahead of time, and no, this is not Kevin's actual car, but this is the exact facsimile or an analog representation of Kevin's car. This is a 2005 BMW 325i. Now, in the years that I've been doing car audio, I've learned one very, very important thing. European cars are a pain in the butt to work on. They're very well sealed. I mean, they've got metal behind the rear seat, solid metal rear deck. They can be very challenging to take apart, and speaker locations, they use some odd sizes of speakers. So we're going to kind of go through some of the pictures we took of this car, and we need to start with the car itself to kind of look at the car and see what we have to work with. You really can't just jump in and design a system without knowing a little bit about the car, and you probably need to know a little bit about who you're building the system for. Because, I mean, if you're doing a system for you or me or, anybody else, it's going to be a completely different set of challenges. So you really have to tune the system around the person that's going to be listening to it. And that's one of the key things I stress to people is, it's not always what you want. If you're doing it for someone else, you really need to listen to what they want. It doesn't matter if you think it's the best system in the world. If the guy that's paying the bill doesn't like it, you didn't really, hit that one out of the park. It was kind of a fail. So you got to ask, what type of music, talking with Kevin. We know Kevin a little bit better than, a lot of times you'll know some of the people you're working for, but Kevin is a music guy. He's an audio guy. So right away that tells us we need to have something that probably sounds good, right, Jacob?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things we were thinking about doing, we've got some products on the table. Maybe we're going to discuss with you guys what products we decide to use in this car.
And if you guys got any suggestions as we go, type them right into the chat box. We'll take any and all suggestions. I said we'll take them. I didn't say we'll use them all, but hey, at least we'll take them.
Yeah.
It's like those companies saying no credit application refused. Well, that doesn't mean they have to, go ahead and approve you for credit. They just won't refuse the application. So, but yeah, feel free to work with us and give your suggestions, because you never know. We might actually use one of your suggestions. You might come up with something that we didn't. Jacob and I don't do installs on a daily basis. Some of you guys out there that work in retail probably do and have a lot better handle on exactly what's going on in some of these vehicles. So we're going to approach it like, hey, we're new guys. We've never done this before. I guarantee you I've never worked on a 325i BMW. Have you?
No, I've never touched one.
Okay, so this will be kind of a cool challenge. But Kevin, obviously, older individual, he's probably not looking for, the back seat doing a wall. I wouldn't think. That's probably not going to be in the scope of things. It would be fun, and it actually might be easier. Who knows? But yeah, he's probably not looking for that. Is he looking for just a stock speaker upgrade? Well, the speakers in this car aren't actually blown. They don't suit his audio needs, and that's kind of the deal, is he wants it to sound better. So we got to approach it like, hey, we want not necessarily I ask a high quality install, but it's got to sound really good. It's got to sound really natural. And Kevin is old, so he's probably going to want it loud, not because he just likes it loud, but because he's old and it needs to be loud. So it's got to have a little bit of power. So you got to have something that's going to play above the road noise and actually get up to the point where he can hear it with the old grandpa ears that he has. So. And we'd love to give Kevin a hard time. So this is the basic car. So we know we're going to have a system that plays moderately loud. He doesn't need a tremendous amount of woofers, I don't think. He just wants better bass than it's got. A little background on the 325i and BMW, if you guys aren't familiar with it. This system's actually kind of bizarre the way it's set up. It does have a factory amplifier in it. So that tells us right away we need to know how to tie into that factory system. So that's going to be one challenge. I already told you it's got a factory amplifier. I know that from the BMWs I've worked on in the past. Almost every one of them seems to have amplifier hidden, and they're usually in the left rear quarter panel, and this car is no exception. But you've got to be able to access that amplifier access signal, and then you've got to figure out what you have for speakers. Now, some of these BMWs, fairly simple. They've just got 4 speakers. This one is a little bit unique. And let's just start going through the pictures I took of his actual car, because there's something about his car that's going to make it really important for you guys to realize you need to look at the actual vehicle. So if you're going to do an install for a customer or a friend, go out and look at their vehicle, because there might be questions, concerns, or wants they have that you might not have thought about. And this car is actually a perfect example, and we'll point that out when we get to it. But here is the door panel on this 325i, and what do you see there, Jacob? Besides a gray door panel with some nice carbon fiber trim.
Well, it looks to me like there's going to be a tweeter up there next to the pillar and the mirror, and then it looks like a middler in the center of the door as well.
Otherwise known as a mid-range.
Mid-range, yep.
For you Americans out there, I'm not sure what country Jacob's coming from.
And then I can't tell behind the picture
behind the picture, but there is some form of woofer in that door.
Yeah, so there's going to be a woofer in the, there we go. So there's a woofer in the bottom corner of the door as well. So it looks like a three-way system from the factory. So my first thoughts looking at this are we need to see if those are all going to be crossed over at the factory amplifier or not. What do you think, John?
I think you're exactly right. We need to test that. We need to figure out how many different signals are going into the door. Is there one signal that's all parallel between all the speakers? They have passive crossovers. Is it a multi-channel amplifier and it's got crossovers built into it? So do we need to sum the signal together? Also, we got to look at the speaker placement. And what do you think about those speaker locations? I mean,
I think they're really odd.
I do too. I don't know what they were smoking over there when they designed this car, but there's a mid-range right almost in the middle of the door.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really bizarre place. That's about where your knee is going to rest, right up against that speaker, I would guess. But
so to me, the tweeter up top and the woofer down low seems pretty normal.
Yep,
but then
that's not bad.
They threw that in the center of the door. It makes no sense to me.
It's like they got a special buy on 3-inch mid-range speakers, and they decided to make a spot for them. Otherwise, other than that, the guy that was designing the car had a good buddy that was in the speaker industry, and they needed some help clearing out whatever. But yeah, I'm going to say from what I've talked about in the past in designing audio systems, I think we're going to ignore that speaker. Now, that doesn't mean we have to take that speaker out, make some kind of funky cover over it. We might just leave that speaker in there and just bypass it and just ignore it. Because we really want to have as few drivers as possible, as forward located as possible to keep that path length 1-to-1 for a better image, and we want to keep the same type of speakers together as much as possible. So I think we'll look at sticking with that tweeter location up above and using that door location. Now, do we know what size speaker that is? I'm going to guess that it's going to be anywhere from a 5-inch all the way up to a 6.5 or 6 3/4 without taking that door panel off. I'm not sure. I can definitely tell it's not a 6x9, and I have been thrown for loops before where I've thought, hey, that's a 6.5-inch speaker. I know GM used to do this a lot in the mid-90s where they'd have a really big speaker grill and then have a nice big 6-inch round hole, but then they put an adapter plate with a 4x6 in it. It's like, I have no idea why they did that. But anyway, so this door is going to be a little bit of a challenge. This car does not have room in the kick panels to do anything down there, so that's definitely out. So we're definitely stuck with doing something in the doors. Now, we could put a coax down there and just ignore the other two locations, or we could put a component down in the, with the woofer down on the bottom, the tweeter up higher. We could actually do a component with the tweeter mounted coaxially. We have that option with our KS speakers. So we do have some good options up front. Now, Kevin, he's wanting good sound quality, and the higher you can get the stage, the better. The more of the bigger speakers you can get up high on the dash, the more natural it's going to sound, and the higher your overall stage is. So if you reach to your left there, Jacob, this might be an idea. Go ahead and grab that speaker. Got to pull it into the shot there because it didn't go wide enough for the camera, of course. So we've also got our little, what we call the snowman. This is the KST 2504. Or KSMT 2504, and that's going to be a 3-inch mid with a 1-inch silk dome tweeter. So that's another option. We might be able to figure out some way to mount that either to the A-pillar, to the dash, to the door, so we've got something a little bit bigger than just a tweeter up on that upper area. So that's going to bring more of that stage and imaging upwards, and then we can just do something like whatever size woofer fits down to the door. But that is definitely a good option if you guys just have door speakers only and you don't have anything up higher. Those are a great idea. They come with an inline passive crossover between the tweeter and the mid-range, and they do have bass blockers if you're going to hook it up parallel with a stock speaker. So even if your stock speakers just have absolutely just terrible mids and highs, I mean, if the mid-bass, which is usually pretty good on a stock speaker, the mid-bass generally isn't too bad, and sub-bass, well, we all know that isn't going to be relevant at all because they just don't put any sub-bass in factory systems anymore. That's why we make subwoofers, and we make a lot of different subwoofers. So great choice there. That's a great option, or just doing a set of components. We really won't know until we actually get in and start tearing that car apart. And that's another big thing to think about is be ready to change your plans as you go. I can't tell you how many times I've had the entire system planned out perfectly in my mind. Then I get to the car, and the car says, nope, you're not going to do that for one reason or another. There's something behind the speaker, or the speaker isn't the size you thought it was, or there's something funky going on with the wiring. I mean, some of these cars are next to impossible to run extra wires through the doors with the way they do a lot of the Molex plugs. And sometimes you can, sometimes it's just a hollow boot. You can feed wires through them, but if you want to add, more speakers to a door, say you want to add, a full actively crossed over three-way system like you have in that door, you might need 3 pairs of speaker wires going to each door. So a positive and negative, and 3 of those for each door panel. And if there aren't that many, speakers running through the door, then you got to figure out how to get that into the door. So that can be another limiting challenge, is just running wires in some of these cars. Mm-hmm. So, pretty good idea. We're going to leave the stock radio in there, right?
Oh yeah.
I think Kevin mentioned that he likes the stock radio. It looks good. He says it does everything he needs it to do. Well, I'm thinking this is a 2005.
Yeah, so he must not use Bluetooth or auxiliary input.
Or USB.
Or USB or anything like modern.
Kevin's old.
He is old.
Kevin is old. So.
I think it has a CD player,
Kevin, but
AM and FM, and that's it.
So, hey, CD player, nothing wrong with CD player. I still listen to CDs, but I'm kind of old too. But I have kind of graduated. I use some of the new technology as well. I, do the title streaming, and I do have my iPod that I play, but everything mine's recorded lossless or almost WAV files. I mean, some of those files are pretty big, but it's all recorded on an iPod, and I know that's old too. They don't make those anymore. But I had the USB input. And, with my cars, it actually shows up on the picture of the album artwork, which is kind of cool. Kevin's never going to see that because he doesn't have a screen. He doesn't have a backup camera in this car.
No,
that's how old it is. But
it's pretty much bone stock. Stock is a DIN 3. How do you say it?
Well, yeah, it's got the either DIN and DIN. It's got the performance package on it, so it's really not stock. I do know because I drove the car here. It's got a little short throw shifter, and those are really fun. I kind of miss having a manual transmission after driving that. So as soon as we get this system done, I'm actually gonna have to take this out and road test it. So it's just an excuse to drive it. So Kevin, if you're watching, just warning you ahead of time, I'm gonna go drive the sucker because it actually drove really nice on the way here for 2005. It's only got 86,000 miles on it.
Wow.
I mean, that's not bad at all. All right, so that's kind of where we're at with the doors on this car. Oh, something else to consider, by the way, and I just realized that looking at the picture of this door panel. Ernie, can you pop that back up on the screen again? Look right above the armrest. What is that little cutout that's above the armrest?
It's going to be an airbag.
An airbag. Yes, so make sure you are aware of airbags in the vehicle. Don't try to cut through them with the Sawzall. That never works either. But you really can't do anything to block that airbag. Anything you put in front of an airbag, if that airbag is triggered, is going to become a projectile. So you've got to be kind of careful, too. I'm not sure why they put an airbag that low on the door, because if you've got your arm sitting on the door, it's going to hit you right. Anyway, it's 2005. They didn't care about people back then, did they?
I guess not.
All right. So moving right along, here's a picture of the top corner of the dash, which a lot of times you will see speakers in the pillars. I mean, it's very common even in new cars today. This one does not have any pillars, or speakers. It does have pillars. It's got a left and a right, but it doesn't have any speakers in the pillars. And what do you have to say about that wonderful upholstery on there, Jacob?
It looks like the glue is failing. That's holding on the fabric.
He had some work done, and yes, I will go ahead and mention right now, there are airbags in that pillar. And how do we know that? That's why the upholstery is all messed up, because Kevin was telling me they got in there to do some work on the airbags, and that's when they screwed up all the upholstery. So I think it'd be kind of nice if we made the car look a little bit better, because, I mean, you see this all the time when you're driving down the road. So I think we're going to go ahead and see if we can't come up with something to make those pillars look a little bit better, because I want to do that for Kevin. I mean, just he was so much fun, and kind of a thank you for all the years of fun and shenanigans. So tweeter, since I just told you there is an airbag in there, I'm not sure if we might be able to get a small tweeter down lower in that pillar, or maybe on the front side. That is definitely an option, but you got to make sure that you don't interfere with the airbags. Mm-hmm. Putting a tweeter right across an airbag, I mean, that pretty much is almost like a miniature cannonball or a bullet.
Turn into a bullet.
Airbag explodes and goes off. So you got to be careful about that too. So that's the pillar, and obviously no speakers in the dash location. Mm-mm. Now, even if you wanted to go ahead and add a tweeter into the dash on these particular cars, you have to take the whole dash off the car. I don't think we want to do that.
Absolutely not.
That sounds like a lot more trouble than it's worth. And then, getting it back together, And obviously with older cars, when you take them apart and then you put them back together, you're going to run risk of squeaks and rattles, and we don't want to do that to Kevin either. So we're going to refrain from tearing the dash off this car for this average install. Next picture, moving right along. Now you can really see the wonderful upholstery. In fact, let me grab my mouse. And this is actually a cover plate. I'm not sure if that's part of the airbag yet, but that little strip there, I'm not sure if that's solid or if that's access for screws or if that's a vent for the airbag, but we've got that to contend with. And it'd be cool, if we wanted to put a tweeter here, but the tweeter in the door is so close when the door is shut, you really wouldn't have to put a tweeter there because it's already got a tweeter location right here in the corner of the front doors. So we may be able to just upgrade that factory tweeter and put a better tweeter there. And, I don't think it's big enough to put a mid-range there and then put a tweeter in the pillar. But, once again, those are all options. You can always do some custom build-outs, the tweeter pods like we see with guys doing, mids and tweeters in that pod and build a custom pod. But you got to make sure it doesn't interfere with the airbag. So there's a lot of concerns with the front of that vehicle. Look at this awesome carbon fiber trim everywhere. That's Kevin's like he's styling in his old age. Neat little car.
Yeah, it's cool. He has good taste.
So here we see the factory door on the right side. Now you see the tweeter location, this wonderful 3-inch, and then the mid down low, and you can see that there's almost no room whatsoever in that kick panel to put a speaker down there. So we are definitely going to be limited for the majority of the bass and mid bass and vocals up front with that lower door speaker. So, and here again, you got that airbag, and you notice right here looks like the vinyl is peeling from behind the airbag. So as long as we got that door panel off, we'll see if we can't fix that for Kevin as well.
Yeah, maybe we could try and tuck it back in and use some like E6000, E3000, whatever that glue is called, and get it back on there. See if
Super glue.
Super glue, yeah. To put it simply,
CA glue. Cyanoacrylate glue, the stuff that sticks your fingers together. You know what's really cool about super glue? Weird trivia, by the way, guys.
Is this a John joke? Or?
No, it's actually true. Super glue was actually designed during the Vietnam War to glue skin together.
Huh.
For people that were injured, in battle, rather than having to sew them up, they actually invented super glue to put people back together. So that's why that sticks your fingers together so well. That's what it was designed to do. So be careful with that stuff. And if you've ever dealt with a lot of super glue and you're grinding it, those fumes are noxious too. If you're grinding, a big chunk of super glue, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. Just another little install tip because we don't want guys keeling over on us. Oh, I guess I double tap that. So here's Kevin's trunk. Now, ignore the big stain on the floor. That's where, the body of his, we won't say who it was, but anyway.
Previous owner.
So, yeah, the previous owner had a body in there or something, but there's a funky stain. But what is unique about this trunk, Jacob, that probably don't have in a lot of other cars?
Well, right offhand, that strut brace.
Exactly.
Looks like it might make building a sub box challenging for this car.
That is definitely going to be the big wrench. And this is the big reason why I mentioned you really need to get out and look at the vehicle, because the customer, they may not know that this is an aftermarket accessory that, is a bolt-on that can't be moved and, is part of the car, part of the performance. So most of these BMWs do not have that. So if you assume it doesn't have it, you go ahead and build a box and you go to put it in there, you're going to be kind of surprised when you figure out it's not going to work. So if I didn't actually put a tape measure in there, but we got some room below that we could actually put it. We got enough room to put, maybe an L7T10 or 2 or, Comp RT 10 or 12s. Below that, there's actually some room between the back seat area and that bar, so something could stand up vertically behind that bar. So just remember, you may have some challenges in some of the cars, just because of what the consumer has done to it or what your buddy has done to it or whoever you happen to work for. So that is going to be an interesting challenge. I have some ideas, but I'm not sure where we're going to go with it yet. We'll just kind of have to see. But right behind that strut bar, if this is typical of most of the BMWs I've worked on in the past, that is going to be solid metal. In fact, we look up under the rear deck, because it does have speakers in the rear deck. You see a lot more metal. In fact, these cars are built very well. There's a lot of metal in here. It's very contoured. So if you were to build something up, firing up through the rear deck, like a woofer, like an upward firing woofer, you've got a couple considerations. One, you got to cut a hole in the metal, and then you have to put a grill above it to allow it to breathe into the car. But you're going to have to seal that speaker to that rear deck, and and it's not going to be impossible. It's just going to be a little bit more work.
It'd be challenging, because if you look at the bottom of that deck, there's a lot of curves. If you try and cut a hole and mount a speaker directly into that,
it ain't gonna work.
You're not gonna find a place for that gasket to seal up flat on the underside of the rear deck. It's just not gonna happen.
And not only that, with this car, as contoured as it is, if you try that, you're gonna bend the basket.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending how tight you tighten it, you're gonna bend the basket. And of course, then the voice coil's gonna rub because everything's out of alignment. So you do have a little bit of a location there for a rear speaker. We see that kind of poking down from this area right here. So there's no access to that speaker from down below. So if we're going to do anything with those speakers, we got to get to them somehow. So, even though I don't go for rear fill a lot, I mean, personally, I don't like a lot of rear fill or any rear fill. This is not my car, so Kevin might want rear fill. So I haven't really asked him. I suppose I should, but just remember, a lot of people like the speakers in the rear. So it's a little bit more work and can be more of a challenge. And it's, like I said, not my choice, but hey, it's his car. He may want rear speakers, which knowing Kevin, that's just more surface areas can be louder. He probably does. All right, back door. Another odd situation. What do we got going in the back door? And this is not uncommon even in newer cars today.
That just looks like a single middler, I
Yes,
guess. Like
it's actually a
3-inch.
tweeter.
That's a tweeter.
Yeah, they just put a tweeter in the rear door.
Why?
My point exactly. What were they smoking over there?
I don't know.
So I just got done working on a Chrysler 300, a 2022 Chrysler 300, and it's got a 3.5 coax in the rear door. And I had a 2011 Charger I just sold. Same thing, it had 3.5 in the door and a 6x9 in the rear deck.
Well, at least a 3.5 is better than just a tweeter.
Yeah, it is. But I've seen some of the Dodges out there, they put just tweeters like the trucks. They'll put just a tweeter in the rear. Ford's done that before, so I don't know what they're thinking, but I do not like tweeters on their own. I mean, because just all the high frequencies are coming from front, everything else is coming from behind. It's just not a real natural sound. Now, we got to consider the fact this is just the passengers, and who cares about them?
Right.
They're lucky they're getting a ride in the car, so they're going to get what they get. So definitely, in my opinion, and of course we'll run this past Kevin, see what he thinks. We just ignore that.
I agree. I mean, we've already got, we're going to consider putting coaxials in the rear deck anyway for rear fill.
I mean, we could do components if we wanted. We could put, component in the back, with the woofer in the rear deck and the tweeter up there, just like they've probably done here. But I just don't like that idea.
Who cares about the passengers?
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun. All right. So, and there we have the rear deck. So it does have a fairly large grille. I would imagine that's, got to be, it's bigger than a 4-inch, so probably, once again, maybe a 5 1/4, 6, 6.5, 6 3/4. Probably not going to be an 8-inch. I haven't seen too many cars with 8-inch coaxes in the rear. In fact, I haven't seen any.
But that grill almost looks ovular. There might be like a 6x9 or a 6x8 in there.
Yeah, or since it is a European car, they really like their 4x6s. We talked about GM doing that in the doors, so like the Grand Ams and the Cavaliers and some of those. But the Volkswagens, they used a lot of 4x6. They put 4x6s in the doors on some like Jettas and
Didn't know that.
Yeah, really bizarre stuff. It's like 4x6. Hey, being a Mustang guy, even the 65, 66 Mustangs had a factory 4x6 location in the door if it was an option.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Weird stuff. And anytime someone asks about replacing those, like, don't bother. Just do
Yeah.
those cars. You got big kick panels. Do a good set of kick panels and ignore those door speaker locations. So this basically lends me to believe that hopefully that grill will unsnap from the top, or we got to figure out how to pull that rear deck out and get the back seat out of these cars. I will tell you, getting these cars apart can be a challenge. If you've not worked on a lot of European cars, BMW, Mercedes, Jaguar, Audi, these cars can be a bit of a challenge. They're actually built really well, but they're not built to come apart at all.
Well, and I'll mention something. I'm sure that some other people have seen it, and I'm not the only one, but some shops will even put out signs that say they don't work on BMWs or Mercedes or, foreign cars because they just take so long. I mean,
yeah, unless you charge them by the hour.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they're definitely can be a huge challenge, and I've done a lot of them, back in the 90s and the 80s. But it's a whole different ball game now. The new cars are they're pretty sophisticated, even with the electronics. Now this car obviously doesn't have a lot of electronics we have to deal with. It doesn't have noise cancellation, the engine enhancement that they put in some of the vehicles, being a 2005. And he does want to keep the stock radio. I do know that for a fact. He was very clear about that. Wanted to keep the stock radio. So once again, we just basically need to access a signal source somewhere and replace the speakers and, maybe add some bass to it. So let's see what else. I think that's the last picture I have of this car. So that being said, we know Kevin wants more bass. We know he wants better sound quality. He wants to keep the stock radio. We've got a lot of options up here. We've got, some different speakers up here, and, we want to kind of go over, what is going to be best suited for that car, depending on the customer, once again, and the person that, you're doing the install for, whether it's you or, your friend or, somebody else. You need to know the differences in the products and what they're designed for. So in front of me here, like this CS speaker, this is our new CS 4x10, by the way. This actually will start shipping pretty soon. And shameless plug for new product, I know. But the CS speakers, actually, basically designed as a stock replacement. It's a great sounding speaker. It's very efficient. So efficient is, power in versus power out. So it does not require an amplifier to get a decent amount of volume out of it. It will handle a small amplifier, but it's designed to be very efficient. When something's efficient, it's just like with a car, the heavier the speaker is or the heavier the car is, the more energy it takes to get it to move. So since it is efficient, we know it's got a lightweight cone, which also means it's got a higher resonant frequency, because the more something weighs, the lower the resonant frequency. So it's not going to have really, really super deep bass response, but it's going to have great efficiency. It's going to sound good. It's going to play pretty loud for the amount of power. So that's one option. The next option, of course, foam surround, 13 millimeter PEI tweeter. When we jump up to the KS speakers, and here in the studio, we jumped on this and decided to do this last minute. We do have a KS woofer over here. I don't have the tweeter. But the KS speaker, it's basically the step up. Now, even though the KS speakers are actually shallower than the CS, isn't that weird?
That is weird.
You would think a less expensive speaker is going to be shallower and smaller magnet. The KS speakers were actually designed after the CS, so we found ways to make them even more shallow and less mounting depth than the CS. So the KS speaker does have a heavier mid-range cone. So it's got lower mid-range. I mean, it's got a little bit better bass response, better lower mid-range response, but that's going to sacrifice a little bit of the efficiency. So it's going to take a little bit more power to drive that than this speaker. But it will handle quite a bit more power, so therefore I can put a bigger amplifier on that. It is going to play louder overall. Something else to consider is that has basically a rubber type surround, or a Santoprene surround, for lack of better terms, which is a soft rubber surround versus the foam surround on the CS. So if you're going to put something in the rear deck of a car in the sunlight, I talked about the Hondas back in the 90s, the foam just completely rotted away in the rear deck. And that's actually happens in doors too. Just as that foam gets older, it does eventually deteriorate. That rubber is going to last a little bit longer. So that is a totally different sound of speaker. I mean, it's going to have more of a natural sound, and we don't have it up on the table here, but it does come with basically the tweeter that's in here. It does have a soft or a silk dome tweeter, which is going to be a little smoother, more natural, and not quite as bright. But some people like really bright tweeters. They want the highs to just, basically, part their hair. Not that I have any hair to part anymore.
Yeah.
But it's all personal choice. Which brings us to the next speaker right in front of you there, Jacob, the Power Sport speaker. Now, would there be a disadvantage for using a Power Sport speaker in a car?
Well, so the thing about the Power Sport speakers is they're designed to have a pretty bright sound and project over wind noise. Like if you put this in a motorcycle, you're going to want it to cut through the wind noise. If you
your helmet.
And your helmet, yeah.
Yep, wear your helmets.
So if you put these in a car, the highs they're just going to rip your face off. It's going to sound pretty bright.
But some people might like that.
But some people might want that. Yeah.
And the other thing, because it's designed to play very loud with minimal amount of power, since you don't have big electrical systems on a motorcycle, it's got an even lighter cone yet. So you start losing more of the bass response. Of course, when you get going down the road at 70 miles an hour, you're not going to hear 40 hertz coming out of a little speaker that size. Now, when you sit still, sitting at the bar or at the stoplight, it's going to sound a little bit better. But with any speaker, and I don't care who makes a speaker, at high speeds, the smaller speakers, you're just going to lose bass response. It's not like a car where it's enclosed. You're basically trying to pressurize, all the atmosphere, on the planet. It's not going to work real well.
Right.
But, that's another option. Now, the other disadvantage for that speaker, actually there's one advantage to that for if you're going to use it in a car. The magnet is actually a neo-magnet, so it's a smaller magnet structure. And it's also very lightweight. So in a fairing, like on a motorcycle, that's really good because it doesn't put a lot of weight up on top of the handlebars to affect the handling of the motorcycle. But that tweeter can be a problem in a stock location, and tell them what that problem might be by looking at it.
Well, it's going to aim away from you. So,
and it actually sticks up quite a ways, too.
Yeah, so mounting depth is going to be an issue. I don't know if you guys can see that on the, yeah, there we go. So, yeah, you wouldn't, so say we wanted to put these in the rear deck. We saw those grills earlier. Say it has an ovular style speaker. Those factory grills are not going to snap back down over this speaker because that tweeter angles forward so much like that.
So something else to consider is, once again, and that speaker doesn't come with a grill either, so you'd actually have to have a stock grill. It's really designed to be a Harley direct replacement. It's even got the factory Harley plug on the back, so you literally just unplug the factory Harley speaker and plug that one in, screw it down and go. And we've got another speaker up there. What about using a marine speaker, in a car audio application? What kind of advantages, disadvantages do we have there, Jacob?
Well, one advantage I could think of is if you've got leaky windowsills in the car.
Yeah.
Leaks on the back of the speaker, you're not going to have any problems with the marine speaker. However, disadvantage that I can think of right away is going to be mounting depth again. Now this one,
same thing.
This one in particular does have a removable horn, and you can replace it with a shorter horn.
So it's not so horny.
So
right?
it's yeah. So it's not as deep, or it doesn't stick out as much.
Bill's rolling his eyes back there. But God, he's at it again.
One other thing about this that I'd like to compare is the mounting depth of the speaker. It's going to be a little bit deeper than this one right here, a little bit deeper than that. So, if you're trying to fit this in a door where you have a very thin mounting position, that might cause problems as well.
Yeah, so now you got mounting height and mounting depth problem with that one. But, sonically, those speakers actually sound pretty good. They're fairly efficient. They're a little bit more efficient than car audio speakers, but they sound really good.
Yeah, they sound great, but they're really directional because of that horn, too. So
yeah, they're designed to be in a boat.
So if you mount
or
it
a motorcycle,
like on the bottom of the door facing into the cab, I think that one thing that we do when we're designing car audio speakers is we're measuring off-axis response too. And with these, it's really more of an on-axis or a directional thing. It's designed to project a ways.
So explain off-axis and on-axis.
So off-axis basically, so say you're sitting in a car and you've got a speaker off to the side in the kick panel, but it's not aiming directly at you. That's going to be off-axis response. On-axis response is like, say we've got these guys, and I aim them directly at my face.
Straight at you.
That's on axis. So when we design speakers, we take into consideration the off-axis response because most of the time your speakers are not going to be facing directly at you.
And that's usually measured in degrees, by the way. So if we take, the speaker here, you are on axis, when you're going straight out from the speaker. Actually, we're this camera here. So as I turn it, go halfway, that's going to be 45 degrees off axis and 90 degrees off axis. So if I'm standing over there, that's 90 degrees off axis. And, a really good speaker will sound pretty good at that entire range. But there's no speaker that sounds exactly the same all the way. It really depends on the design of the speaker, the location, the style of tweeter. So that's why when you're doing a high-end car audio system, we always recommend, if at all possible, when you're really tuning it, for sound quality, you want to equalize the left and right channels separately because you're not sitting in the middle of the car. You're more off axis on the driver's speaker than you're on the passenger speaker because the passenger speaker is farther away. So they are going to sound different. So that's something to consider as well. Something nice about, something like this, like the little tweeter pod we have here, we can rotate that tweeter, we can turn it this way, we can actually do all kinds of different things. So I can make that speaker be on axis just about any position I mount it. Within reason, it only does, go so far off that post. But so that is a real advantage of something like that. Besides the fact you've got a mid-range and a tweeter up higher in the vehicle now, it's going to have better, frequency response, better imaging. So that's another great advantage of having something like this that you can actually put on axis. I know a lot of times when we do high-end installs, we'll actually aim the mid-range and tweeters. One of the old tricks was to aim them at the dome light, which, the cars that have the dome lights right in the middle of the roof. That was one of the things we used to do, is like try to aim those speakers so it kind of intersects the driver and the passenger for great imaging. And in fact, there's little tricks. You get those little laser pointers. They actually make them that have a flat bottom, so you could actually set that on the speaker and use that to actually aim it. So just remember, if you're going to build custom pillars, once you build that pillar, you're not going to be able to move that speaker.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be permanent. So that's why you got to make sure you get that exactly where you want it the first time. So it gives us a lot of different options with speakers. And of course, there is the QS option, which we didn't happen to bring one of those up here. But just remember, it doesn't matter, what the consumer wants or the customer, your buddy, or whoever you're doing the install. Everybody has their own idea what they want for sound, and I've done stuff for people before that I just like cringed the whole time I was doing it, but they couldn't have been happier. There is no right or wrong. It's basically it's so subjective to what people want. So hey, you might really want to put a marine speaker in the car. Just hey, that's the type of sound you want, so go for it. If it fits, make it work.
Yeah.
So frequency response and signal and power wise, I mean, obviously we're going to have some power. Kevin did tell me up front before he retired, he actually did purchase the 200 and the 500 key. Jacob, why don't you tell me what makes these two amplifiers very unique, and actually they're going to be a great fit with this car, I think. Of course, they work with any car, but especially this type of car.
Yeah, absolutely. So what sets those amplifiers apart from the rest of our line is going to be the signal processing that's built into each of them. So if you guys aren't familiar, the Key 200.4 listens to the car and the acoustic profile of the car with a microphone, and it runs an auto setup on itself. And basically, it'll make some clicks and pops and tones through all the speakers that are
Sounds like
connected
Space
to it.
Invaders.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll listen to those, and it'll physically be able to detect how far away each speaker is from the microphone and add time delay to make all the sound waves hit that location at the same time. It'll also EQ each channel as well. So it has an EQ curve built into the amplifier that it tries to recreate, and it has a certain amount of processing that it uses to be able to get there. So that's really good amplifier for having a great sounding stage in about 5 minutes once you get it installed. You don't have to spend an hour tuning it, it does all of it itself. And the 500.1 also has signal processing built in. It's a little bit different than the 200.4 because it doesn't use a microphone. The 500.1 is designed for bass only as well, so it'll work with subwoofers, not
like bass restoration.
Yeah, exactly. So what that one does, it'll detect the signal coming into the amplifier just purely without using a microphone. It just senses the signal, and it'll make any corrections necessary to reach a flat output on the subwoofer side of things. It also compensates for bass roll-off. So if you notice when you turn the volume up, your bass stays at the same level or starts to go down even a little bit, that amplifier will compensate for that and try and keep it even with the rest of the system. So two really cool amplifiers that are perfect for factory integration, which is exactly what we're doing here for the most part. We've got a factory head unit and a factory amplifier that we're trying to integrate with. So these guys would be awesome to give us a great sound in very little amount of time.
Yeah, the cool thing is, all your setup files are available on kicker.com, because the 204, since it uses a microphone, it does use paint noise, which is basically a reference of equal amounts of all frequencies. It basically sounds just like static in between radio stations. Mm-hmm. But that's what it uses with the microphone. It sends a fixed signal in that it knows what the signal is, and then it measures the response. Now, the cool thing about using the microphone, there's 3 different areas of equalization. You've got the DSP equalization, the digital signal processing that's built into the factory radio. And I would assume pretty much anything after 2000's got DSP of some kind. So I would assume this BMW's probably got some form of DSP in there, equalization. So it'll compensate for that. You've got the acoustic response to the speakers, like we talked about, on axis, off axis, and just each speaker has its own acoustical signature. And then you've got the acoustics of the vehicle, what we call the vehicle transfer function, or how the vehicle itself changes the sound. So that's a really cool thing about using that Key 204, is it's going to compensate for all forms of equalization to give you that. You don't care what it does down here. You got a certain goal you're shooting for. So whatever it does here doesn't matter. As long as it can correct for it and get you to this goal, you're golden. That's exactly what it does. It also adjusts output level on all 4 channels, because the closer your speaker is to you, the louder it's going to be. So like in this case, obviously the driver's side is going to be louder than the passenger, so it'll adjust for that level. And as you mentioned, the time alignment is very important to get a good sound stage and good image, because you shouldn't be able to localize the speakers. It should sound like all the sound is coming from up on top of the dash and from the windshield. So that's really good. And then here again, being a factory car, probably has some form of DSP or bass roll-off. The factories like to roll the bass response off on the factory systems to protect their speakers, because bass requires more power. It's usually which clips, usually when you start burning out speakers. So most automakers have some type of bass roll-off and some type of bass equalization. They build a bass bump, a boost in it, usually between 50 and like 70 hertz. So the Key 500 will address both of those. Now, I don't know what the signal looks like. We could get lucky, and it could be a perfectly flat signal. That means those are going to work all that much better. But if there is any weird type of signal changing going on from the source unit, hopefully, and chances are, those two should compensate for it. So that's definitely a challenge. And the nice thing is with the DC offset, that factory radio factory amplifier is going to have DC offset, so we don't have to find a switched ignition. We can literally tap into speaker leads to get signal going into the amplifier for both the acoustic signal and the turn on. And that's really all you need to do. Connect it to power and ground and you're done. So this, potentially could be a fairly simple install. Slide a preloaded, closure. I think there's enough room under that strut bar. I think we could probably get one of our downward firing, L17 closures, or maybe one of the TRTP enclosures with the passive radiator. So there's enough room under that. We could probably even slide one of those there, or behind it up against the back seat, assuming that we can get bass into the car. Now, it does not matter if that car's got a solid metal back area for the seat, a solid metal rear deck. It doesn't matter where you put the speaker in the trunk. You're probably not going to hear it. Not really well, anyway. I've done that before. Put a nice, great sounding speaker in the trunk of one of these European cars, and the trunk's rattling like crazy, but there's just not much getting into the car. So that's something else we're going to have to get into the car and tear it apart. And like I mentioned, be ready to change your plan. Very seldom, on the first time I work on a vehicle, does everything work out exactly the way you expect it to. Just be ready to be open-minded and don't be, mentally locked. I have to do this, because you may actually end up having to call the person that owns the car back. Hey, we've encountered this. What do you think? We can do this or this, but we couldn't do what we talked about before. So just warn people, especially if it's your first time doing, a certain car, like, hey, never done one of these. This is going to be a learning experience. There might be some challenges. And if it's your first car, plan on it taking longer than it would if you've done these a couple times before. Because the process is going to be interesting to figure out what tools you need, where you need to go find stuff. The first time you do something is always the most challenging and takes the longest. So that really has a good idea of what we need to think about when we do this vehicle. And I'm sure Kevin, he's so easygoing. He's going to be like, hey, do whatever you want, do whatever you think. You know what I like. So I think we're just going to go ahead and do this install. We're going to treat it like it was one of our cars, because Kevin kind of is one of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see what we come up with. So that's basically the gist. Oh, I guess I should mention, not only do you need to know about the car, you need about the consumer, you need to know what type of music he listens to. It's really important because, once again, if he's heavily into bass, the bass is going to be the most important thing. We need to get a lot of it. With Kevin, I know for a fact bass is important, but imaging and sound quality is the most important to him. And the other thing that you really want to make sure you don't do anything that's going to interfere with the function of the vehicle. Like, obviously, if we take that strut bar out, that support bar across the back, while you may not notice it, the perception is, hey, you altered the performance of the car, but make sure everything still works. Make sure if you're going to do some type of subwoofer enclosure, you can still get to the spare tire and the jack. You ever had that happen to you? You get a flat tire and you can't get to your, do you have a spare tire?
Yeah, it's under the bed of my truck.
Okay, so, just want to make sure.
but yes, it's not been there at all. So
yeah, you don't want to have a system that you literally have to dismantle the entire audio system to get to a spare tire. And something else, this car, I keep forgetting, all these little things keep popping in my mind since we don't have the car in front of us. The battery in this car is actually in the trunk.
Oh, great. So we don't have to run power wire all the way up to the front of the car.
So it should be easy to get power and ground to the amplifier, since the battery is actually on the right side, where the factory amp should be on the left side. Now, if you saw in the picture, it had like two little compartments. Those were, believe it or not, for something called a CD changer. Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
CD changer. This car actually had a CD changer that you could put back there, and there was one for the music, and I think it had one for navigation. If navigation was an option on this car, you would actually had a CD drive for navigation.
A navigation CD drive?
Yep. So they had the maps on a disc. It didn't use the satellite. You literally, it was crazy, but that's old school. That's what we have phones for now.
Yeah.
So we've got some places. Maybe we can mount the amplifiers where there's CD players. So I don't know. We've got some options there, and they're small little amplifiers, they're pretty powerful. So signal is going to be easy to get to. Power is going to be easy to get to. Speaker choice, that's yet to be determined until we get in there and tear it apart and figure out what we got going on. Source unit, that's going to be a real simple choice. Factory source unit.
Factory, yeah.
Anything else we need to think of in this car? Anything I've forgotten?
Other than that, we need to be really careful taking things apart because it's old.
Yeah.
But I think I think we pretty much touched on everything.
Yeah, a lot of new cars, like I say, and there's a difference. The old cars, the plastic just gets brittle. It breaks.
Yeah, exactly.
With really strong clips. With new cars, sometimes the clips are one shot. I mean, once you snap a clip, you have to break it to take apart. So the less you can take apart any vehicle, new or old, the better. So ideally, what would be really cool with this car is if we got an amplifier in the back and we have all the speaker wires run to the back from that factory amplifier, it would be really cool if we could grab the signal back there and use those existing wires to send signal from those amplifiers back to the speakers we're going to replace. Then we don't have to run wires through the car.
Yeah, well, that'd be a huge help, and it'd save us on wire too. It can contain everything right there in the trunk.
So we'll see, see if the wires are adequate. The other challenge you run into with a lot of cars is if you want to add extra speakers in the doors, like you want to add a tweeter to the door up higher or something else, sometimes running the wires through the door jambs can be a real challenge. Sometimes it's easy. I mean, I've done some cars that have a boot that's 2 inches high and 1 inch wide, a big square boot, and the whole, all the room for days. And you got some cars where they actually have a Molex plug at each end of that boot, and so it's solid plastic. You literally have to drill through both ends of that to run a wire through. And some of those cars, I know some of the Hondas I've worked on, you only have room to run one pair of wires. I mean, there just physically is nowhere else to run. So if you got one set that already run into the door, you could run another set of wires for a tweeter. But, it depends on the vehicle. So that's going to kind of wind up with Grandpa's install. We affectionately call Kevin Grandpa, and among other things.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of keep you guys posted as we go, what we end up doing with this vehicle. This is kind of a, just a little side project. So it's probably going to be, something we're going to talk about, a little bit here and there as we go along. We don't have to do this whole install in one shot. We can actually just replace the speakers first, or we can just add the amplifiers first. So you got choices. You don't have to do everything all at the same time. And most of the time, you're not spending a lot of extra work if you don't do it all at once. I mean, you're not going to duplicate your efforts if you only replace the speakers. Then you go back and decide to add an amplifier. You're not going to have to redo all the work you did on the speakers. You might have to change the wiring a little bit, but generally not all the work. So you don't, be ashamed if you don't have all the money to get the whole system you want up front. I mean, when I started doing car audio, literally, I'd buy, first I started with a set of door speakers. Then after, I built up a little bit more and got rear speakers. And then I sold all those and bought better speakers. And then eventually I added, subwoofer and amplifiers. And so you kind of keep building the system as you go. You don't have to do it all at once. Anything else you want to say about the car?
Not really. I think we pretty much covered all of it.
Makes it pretty easy. So, guys, like I say, keep tuning in with us as we keep going. Every other week, we'll keep you posted on what's going on with the Grandpa's install. See what we found out, because this is definitely going to be a learning experience for all of us. There's probably people out there that have worked on this car before. They're either loving it or hating it. So they're either going to love the fact we're going to find out something really crazy, or they're hating the fact. Who knows? So it's going to be an interesting challenge, and I always like challenges. I like doing something different every time. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But audio is audio. It's just how you incorporate it into that particular vehicle. So let's keep rolling on with the show. It might be kind of a quick show tonight, but that'll make up for some of the times I really went long, which sometimes you wonder if I'm doing that.
Yeah, it all balances out, right?
Let's jump right into our three favorite topics, which are going to be questions of the last 2 weeks. We'll have some of those questions. We're going to do some fails and some cool installs. I suppose we got to give something away too. I guess warned people we're going to give something away, but all right. I'm going to read you the first question, Jacob, and get your answer on this one. And you didn't actually leave a name. Says, whoever it is, Mr. Anonymous, says, I've been watching the show and getting very excited about the new Solo L7X. Well, we all are, so you're right there with us, including me. My question is, since the center is going to be replaceable and you offer different impedances, are they interchangeable? Good question. What do you think?
No, they're not going to be interchangeable. So what I was told is that if you bought a 1 ohm, say a 1 ohm L7X, and you want to replace it with a 2 ohm L7X, you wouldn't be able to do that because the gap is different on those different models of subwoofers.
And what do you mean by gap?
I mean the gap around the voice coil and the, what is it called? I'm drawing a blank, but
I put you on the spot, didn't I?
Yeah.
I wish we had that cutaway of that L7X. We could show it. But basically, you've got the center pole piece, and you've got the voice coil that actually travels around that center pole piece, and you got a plate on top that voice coil's got to fit in between. So the gap is the distance between that center pole piece and the opening in the top plate. That's called the gap. Now, just like magnets, the closer you get them together, the stronger they are, the farther apart they become weaker. So the tighter that gap is, the more performance, higher output and power handling you get out of that speaker. So as that gap gets farther apart, you start losing a lot of that, that magnetic force. So that's why they are a difference between the impedances, because the thickness of the voice coil is different between these two woofers. Mm-hmm. So they are not interchangeable because it would severely affect the performance. So just remember, when you order those, where the old L7, well, not the old Solo X back in like 2003, we had the dual 1 ohm, dual 2 ohm, and dual 4 ohm. Spares available. Those pretty much you drop whatever impedance you wanted. The gap was the same on all those speakers, the 10, 12, and the 15, or the 10, 12, and the 18. We didn't do a 15. But so the gap is the same depending on the impedance on the older Solo X, but the new ones, the gap is different. I mean, we've taken a lot of time and a lot of effort to make these speakers absolutely the best we can. And to do that, there's precise tolerances, which are not mix and match. They're not granimals like subwoofers. You can't mix and match them. So, great questions. I'm glad you asked that, because I don't know if we've brought that up before, but yes, do not mix and match impedances. The speaker is not going to work the same. So buy the one you want the first time. All right, second question. I'm tuning a system, and I have the CXA 360.4, great amplifier, running my front stage and my back speakers in my 94 Ranger. You have a Ranger too, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I've got a Ranger.
So I should let you answer this question. I'll leave the last one for you. So the door is quite a bit louder on the left front than it is on the right front, but the rear sounds okay. Is there any way to lower the volume on only the left front speaker? Thanks. What do you think, Jacob? How can we lower the volume on one speaker only? This is definitely a challenge, because you weren't ready for this question.
Well,
there is a fix for this.
That's a tough one. Does he have a... He
didn't mention if he has a DSP or anything else.
He didn't mention.
I'm going to assume he doesn't.
If he doesn't.
Because if he did, he could probably adjust it and he wouldn't send the question in. That's my logic. And if you didn't know you had it, shame on you for not knowing you had it. And this is kind of a tricky question, but there's a very, very simple solution.
I mean, maybe he could throw a resistor on that
Yeah,
channel,
that's one way to do it, but that's not very tunable.
No, it's not.
So once you put a resistor in there, I mean, you have multiple values, and the other problem you run into is with a higher power system, those resistors get hot.
I guess...
But you can do that. That is definitely one way to do it.
I guess one thing he could do is maybe take and wire like the right two speakers in parallel and connect them to... Well, man,
no, you couldn't do that either.
What are your thoughts?
You've got one speaker in each channel.
Well,
so.
I was thinking about pulling one from one channel and connecting it to them both to one of the rear channels, and that way you just have the front one on a different gain. What are your thoughts on that, John? I'm
all right. Yeah, that was a trick question, but I'm kind of mean that way. So basically, in the past, we've had amplifiers that had separate left and right gains. We no longer have that. The CX360 has an amp 1 gain and an amp 2 gain, but the left and right on amp 1 are tied together, and left and right on amp 2. So the trick to this one is you have to change the signal going into the amplifier. Now, you can't use the balance on the radio, because if you balance to the right, it balances the rear speaker and the front speaker both. But what you can do is you can get an inline volume or fader control. So I know PAC offers, in fact, because I know that because I've used these before, they offer an inline fader control. It's like $10 on Amazon. It is left and right, but you don't have to use both of them. You could just take the left in and the left out, put that in line before the amplifier. Now you have a volume control on just that channel. So you can't turn it up, but you can turn it down. So what I would do in this case is I would put that volume control on the left front on amp 1, and you can turn that left speaker down only. So good question. I mean, that can be a problem. We start talking about speakers being closer to you, they're louder. Well, here's a perfect example, with this question. So that is how you would solve that. And I forgot the part number. It's a very simple part number. It's just a simple inline fader or inline RCA level volume control. It doesn't take power. It just plugs in with RCAs. So you just stash it somewhere back by the amplifier. Now you have a piece that's infinitely adjustable and variable anytime you want to tune that system. So while the amplifiers don't have it, there's a quick way to do it. So great question. All right, I think we already answered this question, once again, by having all these speakers out. So I'll give you the last question here, Jacob, and it's not a trick question. I'm looking to upgrade my factory speakers, my Honda Accord, assuming they're the same size. What are the differences between the CSC, the KSC, and the QSC speakers, besides price?
Yeah, besides price. So I think John touched on a lot of it earlier, talking about the difference in cone weight and describing the difference in sound from the CS to the KS. The KS are going to play a little bit deeper, but they're going to need a little bit more power. The CS are not going to play quite as deep, but they'll be very efficient. The tweeter domes being made of different materials are also going to have different sound characteristics. The CS has a PEI dome tweeter, so it's going to sound kind of bright compared to the KS. With a silk dome tweeter, they'll sound very smooth and natural. Now, the QS woofers, or the QS woofers and tweeters, are even more different. The QS cones are made of what we call a Tritech material, or Tritech cones, and then they have a Teeter-on dome tweeters, which, again, they sound very smooth and natural, but I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference between Teeter-on and silk is that Teeter-on is like a more uniform sort of thread, right, where silk is... I don't know, it's a natural material, so it has like variations in it. Or maybe I'm
You're pretty close.
misunderstanding.
Actually, the difference is the manufacturer.
Oh, that's it? Really?
I mean, soft dome, there's different materials for soft dome. Teeter-on is just the type of material it's actually made by DuPont. But that material, it's just a different type of material, but it's still a soft dome tweeter, so they're still going to sound really good.
Right.
It's just, hey, it's something to brag about. They're top of the line. We've got a higher grade of silk dome tweeter, which is made from DuPont. It's called Teeter-on.
Okay, cool.
So, and that's the big difference. So, it's all about sound quality. Mounting depth, obviously, is a difference, and price is different. But there's no one that's going to tell you that, the QSC for you are always going to sound better because they're more expensive. I mean, price doesn't really have a lot to do with true sound because, if you're not running, a ton of power to them, it's whatever you like the sound of best. So the big thing, the physical things are going to be the mounting depth, and the other thing is going to be power handling and sound. So that's the differences in all of them. There is no right or wrong. So great questions we had tonight. So keep your questions coming in. Once again, repeat that, support@kicker.com. So we love challenging questions. So feel free to, and it doesn't have to be just about Kicker products. I mean, a lot of these questions are just general, audio in general, and it will apply to anything. So we try to be everything, all car audio encompassing, and we try to bias our way towards the Kicker product because we are biased towards the Kicker product. But hey, if we didn't believe in it, we wouldn't be up here doing this every other week. So, cool. What do you think? Should we go on to fails or should we go on to installs next? What do you want to do, Jacob?
Let's do installs.
Let's do some cool installs. All right. And once again, by talking about the cool installs, if you guys have some cool stuff going on, send these, because I'm literally just pulling these off the Kicker Club and off of our Instagram and Facebook pages. So if you guys have got some cool installs, send them, post them. Bill loves to put that stuff up. I mean, I cannot believe how much that guy posts. I mean, I think that's all he does. So here's a cool little install. Let's see if I can get this picture to rotate around. And I don't know what this car is. I assume that's the trunk. I'm not really sure. It looks like that might be the back window in the upper right, but kind of old school. Those are the old KX amplifiers with I think the second generation of L7s. The thing I really liked about this, those amplifiers originally were gray. Two different, they were light gray and dark gray, and he's got these kind of murdered out, so to speak. So I do like the way you've actually painted the heat sinks and the end caps and kind of, made them kind of monotone. Of course, you get the nice silver Kicker badge, but that's just really cool. That just looks really nice, and like I say, don't be afraid to do that. I mean, it's your system, your gear, make it look the way you want. We love to see customization. Many years ago, there's a really, really good car builder by the name of Troy Trepanier, and he's built some absolutely unbelievable cars, and they did a car for Summit Racing. If you guys are, gearheads like Ernie and I are, you know who Summit Racing is. But they had this little all-wheel drive little Ford coupe. I mean, literally, an all-wheel drive 32 Ford coupe. It was really incredible. The car is red and silver. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And you open up the trunk, and they had the old ZR amplifiers. That was 25 years ago, those ZR amplifiers. But they're showing me the install, and open the trunk, and the trunk's all done gray to match the car, and then you see these black amplifiers, and they look kind of out of place. And I said something to Troy and his dad, Jack. I said, you guys could have painted those. Like, oh, we didn't want to offend you. We didn't want to deface your product and, insult you guys. But it's like, we're not that way. It's your vehicle. Do what you want. We love the customization. So that's one of the reasons why we used to have clear covers you could put on the bottom of your amplifiers if you wanted to see the insides. Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to, modify the amplifiers. Now, I will tell you that may affect your warranty depending on the dealer you buy it from. So that's something to think about as well. Obviously, if the equipment fails, we're going to cover it under warranty. But if you do have something you've customized and it fails and you send it back in under warranty, you may or may not get that one back. You would have to specifically request that I want this one serviced and sent back. Otherwise, you're just going to get a replacement, which, hey, if you didn't like the way you customized, maybe, I don't know. I didn't say that, did I? No, I didn't. So, yeah, cool little install on this one. And, nice work. Just nice and clean and simple. And it looks like a Crunch amplifier down there on the bottom. I just see the NCH. That's about the only thing I can think of.
I see that.
I used to be a big Crunch dealer. In fact, that was some really good gear, back when I was selling it. And we did a lot of systems with Crunch woofers. This must be the show with quad woofers. So here's another great install. I do know for a fact, because I looked at some of this is in the back of a Mustang.
Wow.
And once again, not being biased towards the Mustang, it's just it's called the rear seat delete.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see any trace of the seats in there.
So no, there definitely isn't. In fact, here's the port up above. I imagine this car pounds to be totally sealed off. There was a picture with the amplifiers in the trunk. And if you want to see more in details on this stuff, these actually were on our Instagram page. So you can pull them up, but great install, nice and clean, and nice work. With the taking out the rear seat. I mean, it looks fairly decent. Doesn't look like it's really thrown together all that bad. Here's another fun install. You're gonna not believe what this is in. So it looks like a pair of, I think it's either 10 or 12s there, some 6x9s, and a couple like 4-inch mids. It looks like an 8 or a 10 up top. It's really hard to judge by the size. That's probably an 8 at the top. They're probably 10s below, looking by the CX amplifiers down below. But this thing probably hurts. I mean, not HZ, but HURTS, because that's what it's in. That's a very loud smart car.
Wow.
So I wonder if they put one of the I forgot the motors they put in those for the motorcycles. They put like these absolutely just crazy 4-cylinder motorcycle engines in these things. And just there's videos of these guys doing burnouts for days. But in fact, this thing was so loud that apparently it blew off the tailgate and the doors because they don't match anymore.
Oh, yeah. I guess so.
So either that or you're saving money on the wrap and doing it time by time. But no, very cool install and a lot of fun. And I assume that's a smart car. I think it is. It's we don't have any smart cars in Stillwater, but I would assume that's what that car is. But cool install, and thanks for sending that one. There's actually, see in the background, there's the trailer he hauls it around in. It's a lawnmower trailer. I'm kidding. All right, another cool install. Here's, like I say, love to see kind of behind-the-scenes pictures. Once again, it must be the day of quad woofers. So
it looks like that probably goes underneath the rear seat of a truck or something.
It does, and that's my assumption. What I do like, and this, if you guys are new or trying to figure out vinyl, because the front, I love the vinyl look because it looks very original and factory. But to wrap this all in one-piece vinyl, I will tell you, I mean, unless you have the most incredible stretching vinyl in the world, that is impossible. Without putting seams in here, and seams do not look good in vinyl and carpet. You can generally hide them, but this is a great way to do, wrapping a really complex, enclosure like this and have it look very professional, is wrap the front in vinyl and then just, carpet overlay the top so you don't see any seams. And it does give you a nice contrast, with the vinyl and the carpet. So, great work. And something else, let's zoom in on another feature I saw on this. Just the way they built the enclosure. If you notice, there's a little lip here, so the woofer is recessed into the enclosure, but then it's got another step outside of the basket. So great looking install, and once again, you see the bracing inside for the enclosure to make sure it's very stiff and very strong. So beautifully built enclosure, and like I say, nice combination of materials for a nice, clean, stellar look. And that's what it looks like when it's all done. So you can even see the plexiglass and the LEDs, and that is multicolor LED. So it looks great. The vinyl, almost matches the factory interior perfectly. So Great subwoofer enclosure, and I bet it's pretty powerful with those L7s on there. This probably shouldn't have been the first picture I picked of this because it doesn't show the whole enclosure, but you can see this enclosure lit up, and guess what? It's going to be 4 more woofers again. So another really cool enclosure with that plexi window on the top and the side so you can see what the guys are doing. Let's zoom back out. I've got some better pictures of it because the outside of this box, they've taken covering a box to a new level. So how about that? So good grief. I'm not sure if this is vinyl graphics or if it's a wrap, but if it's paint, I mean, whoever airbrushed that, which I'm kind of thinking it's painted.
It almost looks painted.
Because if you look here, now that you see the radius on that front edge, and the way that wraps over, that would be impossible to wrap. Same thing you have with that vinyl. You'd have to have seams. And so I don't remember who built this enclosure, but hats off, guys. This is really cool. And I don't know if I'd want to, hide it under a seat. I want to see this thing visible. Hey, nice addition to the kicker banner in the back, and got some tools. And here's a trivia question for you, Jacob. Put you on the spot again. What's this logo?
I don't know.
Phoenix Gold. They've been around for many years.
That's a little before my time.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if they're still around, but that's a Phoenix Gold logo. So this guy's been doing audio for a long time. So very cool box, and here's the front of it, and you see those are the Comp RTs. So quad RT box, and it says Quinley or something. Actually, let's zoom in on it so we can see it. See exactly what this says. So Echo, AVU, and Quinquery. I'm not even sure what that is. This might not even be from the U.S. I have no idea. But very, very cool enclosure. So thank you guys for sending the pictures in. If you guys want to see your pictures, featured on the show, and we can talk about it and tell you everything we really like about it, send them in. We love cool stuff, and the more interesting, the better. Just love really cool and interesting ideas. So I hope that gives you guys some ideas. And Bill, you can go ahead and leave the laptop up. We're going to go to fails now.
Okie doke.
We like doing fails.
I just thought of something about that last picture.
Okay.
That might be the social handle of the guy. It looks like O'Quinn Corey, maybe last name, first name.
Okay.
That's just a guess.
Hey, if that is correct, congratulations to them. It is cool. And hey, you're probably as correct as I am. So let's go into fails. Just got 3 of them today, so I'm sure that's staged.
That's got to be. They must use it for storage or something.
No, I think that's just all for fun. But, I will tell you, there's been times where I've looked at cars, and that's basically what my mind thought I was dealing with.
Yeah.
It's just it's all for fun, and some of these fails are just that. They're just for fun. But, how many times have you looked, on the trunk of a car under a dash, and you're just like, it might as well be that. It's that bad.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sure that this would smell real good if they start. If it could even start, I'm not sure if there's a motor in there, but, you'd be rubbing on the belts and fans and everything else.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun with that one. So, this one, what are your thoughts on this one, Jacob?
Why? That's my thought.
That's a good question. Well, they want bass you can feel. How about that?
I guess.
Yeah, that's when you start, really physically altering the vehicle. And once again, hey, if this is your cup of tea, power to you. But
that can't be comfortable to sit on.
That was my next point. You definitely have taken away some of the comfort of the vehicle and some of the usability. But how do they even mount that?
I've got no clue.
Whoever it is, he is the boss.
Yeah.
No, never mind. Sorry, that was really bad. Bill's back there rolling his eyes. I can hear him rolling his eyes. That's how bad he's rolling his eyes back there. And he's only got Ernie back there to make faces at. Okay, so here's another fun picture. What do you see wrong with this one, Jacob?
A huge gap.
Yeah.
It looks almost like it's angled there on the side, and they didn't.
Yeah, I'm not even sure where that is, because you're right. That does look like that's an angle, like they try to put a speaker over a door latch or something. But yeah, the big thing, and you're exactly right, is this gap that you have right here, is that's not isolating the front and the back of the speaker from each other. So it's going to have, the lower the frequency, the worse this is going to sound. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the thing, with like tweeters and, upper frequencies, you can get away with this somewhat, but the lower the frequency, the more it requires, being totally isolated from the rear. So yeah, this definitely not a great install. That one's definitely a fail. But they did take the time and make this adapter and paint it black.
Yeah, I mean,
it looks like it's made out of 1/4 inch, MDF, masonite, or hardwood or something.
The adapter looks nice. Now they just need to do something to cover up that gap. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what.
And like you say, is that in a rear deck? Is it in a door? It's kind of hard to tell. But anyway, more fun pictures. And if you guys have fails, send them in. I mean, even if they're your own, let's have fun with it. I mean, I wish, when I was really started doing installs, I wish I had cameras and took pictures of some of the stuff I've done in the past, because we all had to start somewhere.
I don't.
I think it'd be fun now.
I don't want
if you
pictures.
can't laugh at yourself, but yeah, there's something I've done some stuff, and I look back on it and it's like, did I really do that? Yeah, I guess I did. But hey, that's all about learning and having some fun. I suppose it's time to give something away.
Yeah, what do you think, John?
I think we should give something away, but we got a small problem with this.
Should I tell him?
It's going to be real difficult to give stuff away. I mean, well, at least we can't. I can't tell you. He can't tell you who's giving stuff away. 'Cause remember how I said we were a minimal staff? We're not here.
Yeah, we're physically not in the studio right now.
So yeah, we're in Mexico too. In fact, we're probably sitting on the beach right now with a Mai Tai on our head.
Yeah, you guys remember how John said you're live?
Yeah, I didn't say we're
not live.
So
we're not live.
If you guys picked that up, say why did he emphasize you're live? But yeah, we're not here right now. So and yeah, we really are running with a minimal staff. I mean, it literally is just Bill and Ernie back there, because Sandy and JW also here in Mexico.
Yeah, they're going to be.
So well, they're in Mexico. I mean, we're not here. But
it's confusing.
it is. But this is all pre-recorded, and like I say, thank you guys for putting up with this. And we really didn't want to do this, but with the flights, and they changed our flight schedules. We actually planned on being here tonight, but when they change your schedules, and the planes don't wait for you.
Yeah. So let's see. This will be coming up right about 9 o'clock. So I will have to be at the airport 7 hours from now at 4 in the morning.
Ugly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why we did this. But anyway, we can't see who actually win this stuff, but, I bet with the technology that those guys are wielding back there, they could still do the giveaways. I mean, they could still take the people that registered. I should say tonight. It's tonight for you guys, but it's next Tuesday for us. So for those of you that register next Tuesday, tonight, you're going to win the prizes. And so, Bill, if you're ready, and I don't see any reason why he's not, since I stalled long enough so he could get ready for this. Bill, why don't you roll across the bottom of the screen the third prize winner? And obviously, I'm not going to be able to read it out loud, but hopefully he's running that scroll right now, and this is your third place winner. He's going to win the EB400s, the weather-resistant Bluetooth earbuds, the gray Kicker Unmasked t-shirt, and the Kicker koozie. So that is the third prize winner. Make sure you watch for an email from Bill Frog. We need your name, your address, your phone number, and your shirt size. So watch for that email, and Bill will be sending out a little goodie package. I should say Sandy's sending it out, but she's not going to be here either. We will be here again next week. In fact, on the next show, just to let you know, a little teaser ahead, we're going to do something fun. Jacob's going to be back on the show, and he's going to have some fun with fish tanks. So
that's going to be awesome.
So that's all we're going to tell you about that one. And it might involve fish, and it might not. But it's going to be kind of fishy. So, all right.
It's fishy for
second place winner. We might as well get to that because Bill's going, shut up, guys, and get with it. So second prize is going to be, look at the bottom of the screen, da-da-da-da-da, watch that scroll going across there. So you're the winner, whoever you are. So you're going to win the Tabers, right?
Yeah, I think so.
As always, the second prize winner wins the Tabor, wins the gray Kicker Unmasked t-shirt, which you see right back there. And I don't even have a koozie out here. I mean, we didn't show you that. I don't think we've ever shown, at least I haven't shown the koozie. So that's going to be your second prize winner. Make sure you watch for the email from who?
From social@kicker.com, right?
Yep. And who's that?
It's Bill.
That's Bill.
Frog.
Yep, Bill Frog. So name, address, t-shirt size, and phone number. And once again, we do not give that out, and we don't tell anybody else, but we need all that information. The grand prize winner is going to be, look at the bottom of the screen, you are whoever you are. So maybe they'll get a voiceover and plug that in at the
Give Bill a microphone, just have him say it.
Hey, I like Bill and Mr. Microphone. That would be fun. So whoever you are at the bottom of the screen, you're the grand prize winner tonight. You get the Cush NCs. You get the good old Gray Kicker Unmasked t-shirt, and you get the Gray Kicker koozie. Make sure you guys stay tuned for Living Loud with Andy. Hopefully Andy's feeling better. I think the last time he was a little under the weather, and that show was a lot of fun. Just in case you guys didn't see at the beginning, if you didn't see the last show we did 2 weeks ago, that's when we had Joe Hobart, our engineering director for the amplifiers, and we had the Warhorse on here, and we did all kinds of cool stuff with the Warhorse. So that was a great show. So make sure if you guys missed it, you go back and watch that. Make sure you guys are here again in 2 weeks, or 2 weeks and 5 days?
Yeah.
Whatever it works out to be anyway. Make sure you tune in 2 weeks from this show. And we've got another great show coming up with Jacob and some fun with aquariums. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Guys, we want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I know it's kind of a quick, easy show. We're going to have some fun with this BMW. I hope so. We'll keep you posted on the progress as we do some other cool things. If you guys have suggestions, send them in, what you want to see, what you want to hear, who you want to meet. And as always, hit like and subscribe, and tune in every Tuesday at 7:30 Central Time right here on the Kicker YouTube and Facebook channel, because we will be coming to you next time. We will be live from Stillwater, Oklahoma right here. So guys, have a great night. Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for Living Loud with Andy. Take care.
See ya.